Hi, we are back with our second installment of hashtag Ask a Conservationist. Right now, we are waiting for people to join us live, and when they do, we will conference in our second conservationist. So, in the meantime, my name is Sarah Conley. I'm the International Elephant Foundation's Conservation Coordinator. You've probably seen me before from one of these things. And I hope you're all doing well. We're trying to produce some content that will help everyone stay connected while keeping apart, but keeping it together. So we're going to keep it together as much as we can, and talk elephants, which is a great distraction from all the chaos going on. I see Lynn, so we will see if we can conference her in. Just takes a second. We're connecting through the internet. Yay, here we go.
Hello.
How are you doing? This is, for everyone watching, this is Lynn Von Hagen. And I can do my pre-scripted introduction if you would like. Here we go. We want to help bring elephants and conservation to you wherever you are. Today, I'm here with our second installment of hashtag Ask a Conservationist. Today's guest is Lynn Von Hagen. Lynn is a PhD researcher at Auburn University and a non-traditional student, which is something we'll be discussing a little bit later. She's been involved in 2 IEF-funded projects and has had a lot of great experiences to talk about, so we are very excited to have her today.
Great. It's great to be here. I hope everyone's doing well.
Absolutely. So before we jump into some starter questions, I want to remind everyone watching, if you have questions for Lynn, please put them in the comments so that we can get to those in a couple minutes.
Yeah, I see people logging in already that I know. Somebody from Australia, my mom. So this is going to be
fun. Well, at the very least, your mom should be asking questions. So, all right. So why don't we jump in? Because you're a non-traditional student, how did you get involved with elephant research? Why don't you walk us through that a little bit? Tell us your story.
Sure. Well, I've loved elephants since I was a kid, as a lot of elephant researchers have always been drawn to their amazing cognitive abilities and their memory and their complex social structures. But got a chance to go back to school after a 20-year absence. And of course, always wanted to be a conservation biologist. So that's when I went back for. And then when I got to my master's program, once I finished my undergrad, I said, that's not enough. I want to go further. I was looking for master's programs to join. And I found Dr. Bruce Schulte at Western Kentucky University, who was looking for somebody to help him kick off a project in Kenya, which is where our project is centered, in East Africa. And got really lucky and got the position with him and got my dream job of getting to do research with elephants. So I have been to Kenya about 4 times now, on the ground probably about 2 years total. And now I have got my master's degree and I'm pursuing my PhD with Auburn University as a research fellow there. And just really looking forward to finding out more and more about elephants. I definitely learn more every day. And I'm really proud to represent the non-traditional community because, you know, my journey back to academia got started a little bit later than most, but I'm definitely an example of it doesn't matter how old you are, as long as you're tenacious and keep at it, you can achieve your dreams no matter what your age.
Absolutely. And it's proof that everyone has something to contribute. It doesn't matter what stage in life you're in. You know, look at the work that you're doing and it's valuable and good for elephants regardless of how you came to it. So everyone should remember and stay as motivated as possible if that's where your heart's at.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your projects? You can start with the one you worked on with Dr. Schulte, and then you can move on to this year's project, which is exciting.
Yes. So our original, Dr. Schulte's original idea and our plan, which was supported wonderfully by the International Elephant Foundation, was also part of an Earthwatch project. And I've actually seen some of our former volunteers popping up here already. And that is a citizen scientist NGO where you can actually sign up to come on these expeditions. So you can join me, maybe not this year, but hopefully next, by actually coming out and being one of the volunteers with the project. So originally the start of the project was where we wanted to design experiments where we could look at a variety of different deterrent methods. So a little background on that first, you have to understand, we all absolutely love elephants, but across Asia and Africa, the communities that live with elephants, it's not exactly the same story for them. So most of these communities, including the one that we work in, are extremely impoverished. No electricity, no running water, and they're subsistence farmers. That means whatever they grow, they use as either income or they use it to sustain their families. And elephants, as part of their foraging pattern, have discovered that there's some really tasty crops out there, such as corn, they call it maize in Kenya, and things like that. So elephants will actually come in the dark of night, and they call it crop raiding, but it's just, part of their natural foraging. But they'll enter shareholder farms and can either trample or consume, up to an entire crop just in one evening. So you can imagine being asleep in your bed and waking up and going outside and finding a 6-ton elephant in your garden, essentially. And he's also eating what you're going to, subsist off for the rest of the year. So there's a lot of tension there, and it forms what we call human-elephant conflict. And as we work to try to build these bridges to build coexistence, one of the ways that we've done that is create different deterrent methods. These are different types of fencing or initiatives that help prevent elephants from going into these croplands. And one of the best things is an electric fence. And that's part of what our work was talking about is, sure, an electric fence is great, but is it practical? What rural farmer can afford to put one up? And there's no electricity. Is it affordable? Of course not, for people that don't have access to any kind of resources. And most importantly, the most challenging part is they're really, really smart. So they adapt very quickly to almost anything you throw at them. You would even see elephants in some communities where there's large fences go in and use their tusks to lift up the fences and break them. They'll actually pull down a tree, lay it over an electric fence. So that's just one example of how challenging it is to create a deterrent method that's going to work against a 6-ton elephant. So what our original project did was test 4 different types of deterrent methods side by side in one of the largest experiments of this kind that we've really seen so far. And just to keep it short, what we found is one of the methods that we tested, which was invented by the amazing Mr. Simon Kasaine of Kenya, is what we call the Kasaine fence, or a metal strip fence. And essentially it's like a giant wind chime that hangs around the farm. It's lightweight pieces of metal, and you string these on a wire, and anytime the wind blows, which we're very lucky, the community we work in has a lot of wind. So if the wind blows or it's contacted and moved, the fence goes off and makes this really loud, annoying, jangling noise. So it can be really disruptive to an elephant who is sneaking around at night trying to, steal a bit of crops. And all of a sudden they have a loud noise, and it can usually frighten them away. So that was kind of the initial work that we did. And now from a lot of the lessons that we've had working in these communities, we found things like, elands are also crop raiders. But we know there's a lot of drivers of this problem that sometimes don't get addressed, the root causes really, such as abject poverty. The crops that they're growing are favored by elephants. People really haven't had the opportunity to learn how to make deterrent methods. They don't know what's out there, such as another successful method, such as beehive fences. So there's a lot of information that people are lacking to try to understand why elephants are important in the environment and how they can, help defend their homes and farms from elephants while also not harming elephants at the same time. So that is kind of the direction that the separate daughter project is going right now, is creating community workshop programs where we bring lots of information to the farmers, monitor these deterrent methods that we are installing to see which one or ones are best, and also look at how elephant movements change in response to some of these deterrent methods. We're going to be doing some theoretical work, like incorporating landscape of fear theory to try to, see where we can go with things like that. And we're really excited about the project being able to, help people and help elephants at the same time.
Awesome. And
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's fantastic. There's so many good points that you made. Like, for example, elephants being so intelligent, one of the things that draws us to them is one of the things that makes protecting them such a challenge, because they learn and adapt based on the methods that we come up with. So it's
Exactly.
something people need to consider, especially as conservationists, but also as the people who share their landscape with the elephants. So that, I think that's something worth pointing out.
Yeah.
We're getting some questions, so that's fun.
Okay.
So why don't we take a couple of those? So Traveling Tribe 8 says, Tallulah would like to know how long elephants usually live in Kenya.
That's my niece.
Yay!
Um, so elephant lifespans vary, but usually 50 to 60 years is about how elephants live in the wild. That can differ in captivity, and also it depends on which parts of Africa and if they're having to deal with things such as drought or poaching. But average lifespan is usually 50 to 60.
Very good. And then Ellie Chase has a question. I know.
Hi, Chase.
He seems familiar. He wants to know, how do people, and I'm going to murder this, Kasigwa, K-A-S, say it again.
The Kasagao Wildlife Corridor.
Okay, Kasagao. How do people in the Kasagao region view elephants? Are they revered, feared, or somewhere in between?
Another very good question. It varies across Africa. There's a lot of communities that do view elephants as sacred and have learned how to live alongside them, even to profit from tourism that's surrounding elephants. But in this area, it's very close to it's actually in between Tsavo East and Tsavo West National Parks, which are home to the country's largest elephant population of over 12,000 elephants. So you have a lot of elephants moving through this corridor. Most of the opinion there is fear. If your child is walking to school and an elephant happens to be in the area, they could fear for their lives. So yeah, unfortunately, in this area, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of opportunities there to educate people. And like I said initially, it's important. A lot of people haven't been told a lot about how elephants behave, how to read their behavior, how to interact them around them, which is usually to get out of their way, of course. But yeah, it's pretty sad that the people that are living amongst elephants are usually the most afraid of them.
Yeah, well, and that is completely understandable, but something that I think people in Western countries don't understand, right? Because our wildlife that's in our yard is a squirrel or a deer or the neighbor's cat. It's not a 7,000, 8,000 pound animal who's going to destroy your house.
Right.
So
and could tell you, people don't realize a lot of people are killed by elephants. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons sometimes rural people will lash out and try to harm or poison elephants, because someone in the community may have been killed even accidentally by an elephant. Like there's many instances where, people have been walking at night and didn't even see the elephant, walked up on the elephant. Of course, the elephant got spooked and killed the person. So that does happen, of course, more than anybody wants to see.
Absolutely. So why don't we segue into talking about the community? You guys, I know you talked about your project, how you're going to do workshops, but you guys have done a lot of work within that community as well.
Yeah, as I said, we're in the corridor. The village that we've concentrated on right now is called Sisenyi. And we've worked with a lot of the farmers there, and we're really happy to say that we were able to support Sisenyi Primary School. A lot of the volunteers that have been on our project before, every time we have a group that comes, we get about 6 groups per year from all over the world. We take them to one of the local schools. So it helps people understand really what they're having to deal with. For example, this school has about 800 students. They have 2 bathrooms. A lot of the children don't have shoes. Feminine hygiene products are hard to come by. We often take them school and utensils and supplies like that. In Kenya, you do have to pay school fees. So a lot of times if people are months behind on their school fees, the kids just aren't allowed to continue to go to school. But one of the biggest challenges they face is food. And this is really heartbreaking. Usually when the students come in the morning, they get a little bit of porridge for breakfast, but they feed them lunch. And that's provided by the government. But at some point it runs out. So a lot of the children depend on, and the parents depend on the school to feed their children at least one good meal a day. So we've been through the experience where a lot of times that runs out about midway through the school period. And the saddest thing is that means some of these kids may not eat that day. So what a lot of our former volunteers have done is got together and created a fund for the school. And we're so happy that IEF houses that fund for us, in addition to some other people donating, which makes it tax deductible. And thus far, we were able to provide meals that were needed for almost the entire year last year and part of this year for Sisseton Primary School. And let me tell you, to see those kids and to see how happy they are to get a meal is just, really a great thing that's come out of this work that, wasn't initially something we thought we were going to be doing. I think one of the things that really makes it hit home is you see a lot of the kids will bring plastic bags and they'll take half of their meal back to their family so that their younger siblings can eat for the day. Oh. So it's a really good example of how community engagement is vital to successful projects, and making that community understand that you are there for them. They know that you're there for the elephants, but when they start to see that you're there for them too, and to help everyone, it really goes a long way in them supporting our work. And we're just really excited that both the volunteers and IEF have really stepped up and made us able to really do such a great initiative in this community.
That's fantastic. And it is a great reminder that you cannot remove the human element from conservation. If
Right.
you proceed with protecting elephants or any wildlife that shares habitat with people, you have to find sustainable solutions for the people and make their lives better too.
Right.
You can't be, for lack of a better way to say it, myopically focused on just the animals.
Right. It's all interconnected. And, if you don't have the community on your side, and the community is not educated about why wildlife is so important to conserve, it's going to be really hard to make strides towards that species or that ecosystem that you're trying to conserve.
Absolutely.
And not to mention, I have to throw in there too about the knowledge of Indigenous people. I've been doing some surveys and interviews of people, and we're finding out all kinds of information about the elephants that we had no idea. For example, in the community we're in, we found that elands are a substantial crop raider in this area. There's no literature suggesting that elands are that detrimental of a crop raider. So that's one thing that the local people knew before we even got there. We've also found out that elephants are coming during the day after crops have been harvested in some remoter parts of Casagao, which in Sisseton, we do not see elephants during the day in Sisseton whatsoever. But some of these more remote farms on the edge of the ranches are having elephants come after the crops have been harvested and eat the remains of the corn stalks and things like that.
Wow.
Like I said, every day we find out something new, and part of that is because we've engaged with the communities that we're working around.
That's incredible, and that's, like you said, something that's not in the literature. So this is why we support research. So we have more questions. Betty Birdwell would like to know, do you know when you'll be returning? And I think that's a good question to also tie into, have you heard from your people on the ground? What kinds of things are they going through right now, sort of through this global pandemic?
Sure. Well, hi, Mom. Never thought I'd get to say that. So COVID-19 has definitely shifted everything. I have heard from our colleagues on the ground. Everybody, to our knowledge, is doing really well. Now, Kenya itself has closed its borders to any outside traffic, understandably, and the country is on a lockdown. So for right now, that is pretty much frozen our research. It's going to have to be handled on just, we have to see how things develop. I had intended to go back this year at the end of May. That's looking more and more unlikely at this point. So we may be able to get back in and do some work towards the end of the year. But really right now, we're aware that with everybody else, we've just got to make sure that we focus on keeping everybody healthy and happy and safe. And the research is important, but it's takes second to making sure that everybody's welfare is doing well. And just a shout out to you guys. I know this is a really hard time mentally. Even as a student, nobody expects you to be strong during this or keeping all your classes going. Like, it's perfectly okay to not be productive and get things done, and to just take a breath and kind of understand this moment and this unprecedented. The word gets thrown around a lot, but this is really an unprecedented time for our civilization. So we just got to support each other, be there for each other, and try to do the best we can, because we're going to make it through to the other side of this. And the research will be there and ready for us whenever we're able to get back.
100%. My motto through this, I keep quoting Churchill: if you're going through hell, keep going, right? We're all going to make it through this. We just need to keep going.
Yeah.
And your answer sort of dovetailed into a question that just came in. Jules 10092 wants to know, is the project affected by the current COVID-19 situation? And obviously, yes.
Yeah, definitely. And then we do have another master's student with Western Kentucky, Sophia. Hey, Sophia. She's on here too, and she obviously is doing her master's with the same project, so that's going to affect her as well. She has a little bit longer timeline, so we're just going to have to wait and see if some of the new experiments we were planning are going to be able to be utilized. But we may be able to conduct some experiments from here once Kenya is safe and everybody's doing their things there. But a lot of this does tie into wildlife. I don't know if we want to talk about that, if there's any questions of that, but
hold on. Before we segue into that, Jules has a follow-up. She says, okay, are the scientists on the ground in Kenya restricted with research?
They're allowed to conduct research, desk research and stuff where they're not interacting with other people. It's the cities, of course. Our research area is extremely remote. I think most, and it's Wildlife Works is where we're stationed out of. Big shout out to them. They've been invaluable in our research. And just so everybody knows, they are one of the world's largest UN-backed REDD++ carbon initiative projects. So they are actually, preserving the forest. It's a carbon credit scheme. They do amazing work to preserve wildlife. But right now they are being furloughed, and they're actually being sent home. So our scientists right now are probably not going to be doing anything in the field. Now, since they're in a remote location, they may be allowed to go back to their work sooner than most. Really just not sure. It's really hard right now to just be in wait and see mode, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, well, I think uncertainty is the name of the game for everyone right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, why don't we just touch on a little bit of what you were getting into about how all of this sort of does, at least theoretically from what we know thus far, connect to wildlife?
Yeah, so zoonotic diseases are diseases that make the leap from animals to humans. And this COVID-19 is another one of those diseases. I'm lucky in my PhD work. I'm definitely not a disease ecologist, but I'm actually going to be working with a lot of people who are experts in the area. So I'm going to get a chance to learn a lot from them. So we're exploring things that we can do kind of in response to this to demonstrate how it's very important that the illegal wildlife trade and illegal wildlife trade or what can actually fuel some of these pandemics. SARS, MERS, all these different viruses have emerged from these intermediate carriers of these viruses, which are animals. It's a whole 2-hour lecture in itself. But habitat loss is key. There is a connection between as we continue to lose habitat, how that can be kind of a seeding for a lot of infectious diseases, zoonotic, that are making the leap to humans get started. So it's not what may seem as disparate subjects are really. So it's important that you contact anybody that might be involved in making decisions about making suggestions to close down any type of life markets. So places where animals are sold for consumption is just a breeding ground for these type of viruses, and it fuels the illegal wildlife trade. Especially right now, it has not been 100% confirmed, but bats and pangolins are suspected as the intermediate carriers of these. And of course, type of thing happens, the initial reaction might be, oh, good, pangolins are going to get a break because nobody's going to, continue to sell them or harvest them. But it actually might be the opposite, and people will, hear about bats or pangolins as being, carriers, and then just start killing them. So
Right.
there's a lot of effects that can come out of this. So number one, we want to make sure that any kind of illegal wildlife trades or markets are shut down permanently, which they have closed them right now in China. And also, initiatives towards habitat loss and things like that are really important and linked to trying to make sure that infectious diseases.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, I think needless to say, or maybe a good way to sum that up, is that conservation is important no matter what, even in times of crisis like this, because it actually is all connected.
Absolutely.
So the stream that I'm getting from you keeps buffering, so it might be a good time to wrap it up. So if you have any final points or good things that you want to talk about as far as like your favorite things about elephants, why don't we close with that, and then thank you so much.
Sure. You buffered for a minute there too, so I think I got everything that you said. But were there any other questions that I missed?
I don't see any more questions, so I think we're good.
Okay. So gosh, my favorite thing about elephants, that's hard because there's so many things. I think something that people aren't necessarily always aware of is their amazing communication systems. So, they have a role as ecosystem engineers and as keystone species. Like their seed dispersal ability is astounding. But one of the things I'm fascinated with is not only can they communicate through infrasonic, there's seismic communication, obviously the communication that we can hear, the verbal communication, and chemosensory communication from glands that they're temporal glands and elsewhere. So we kind of have one of the best communicators out there, and it's amazing that we can't even perceive most of it because obviously our sense of smell isn't as good as theirs. We can't hear things below 20 hertz, which is where infrasonic rumbles occur all the time. So think of it this way: elephants are having conversations, even if we're watching, that we're not privy to.
That's awesome. That is a great way to perfect. That is a great closer. Thank you so much, Lynn, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions. I think this was really exciting and informative for everyone. So this was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. You're amazing.
So are you. Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Be
Bye,
well.
guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully we'll do more of these as everything keeps going. Everyone take care. Thank you.